Welcome to the I Fired My Boss franchise podcast. My name's Dan Claps, founder and CEO of Franchise Playbook, a franchisor platform where we create, own, and operate dynamic franchise brands in the mobile services space. And my life's goal is to help people just like you fire their boss and become a business owner.
Welcome to another episode of the I Fired My Boss podcast. Today, live in Madison, Wisconsin. Super excited. This is my third podcast of the day. Very, very cool experience having our franchise owners all in one place. Kicking off our One Voda conference today in a couple hours. It's our first conference. Very excited. But I'm really excited about this episode. Got one of our early franchise owners, our top producers. The name of the podcast originally was All-Star Roundtable, and we were going to have a few others, but I think some guy snuck off for some golf. So we're doing a one-on-one. Thomas Wray out of Houston. A little story real quick. I remember meeting you guys. I flew down, or I was in Houston. I think I flew down.
You flew down for us.
Yeah. Steve was probably like, "Oh, Dan's got to be there anyway," so we didn't look crazy. But I flew down, drove over. We ended up spending coffee. We went to some beers. I met Holston.
Beers, yeah. I had probably 5 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It started to get a little fun. But yeah, no. Start off with coffee, and I just remember you just first starting this thing off, like just super brave, super excited. And I think that's kind of what pushed us over the edge, right? It's just a true excitement for what you're doing, right? And, you, Dragon, obviously, having the existing business and having the know-how and the systems in place already, just those two things combined, really pushed us over the edge. And it was a fun time. It was awesome meeting you. So that's where it all started.
Yeah. Well, let's take it back. So pre-Voda, pre-franchising, like, you don't have the typical background, right, of a home service owner. You deep finance background, investment banking background. Like, I guess to start, like, what was the moment when you thought, I want to get into business for myself, and like, how did that kind of materialize?
Yeah. Well, I've always had this entrepreneurial bug to me. Always. Somehow it was trying to get expressed in some way, shape, or form, and tried trading on my own after a couple stints. So my first job was in investment banking. I was an economics major. Yes, very white collar, very behind the computer. I don't think even think I could snake a drain, right, kind of thing. But I understand business development. I understand finance. I understand M&A, all that kind of stuff from my investment banking days, my corporate development days, and then most recently I was 6 years in energy trading. Mm-hmm. So that was in New York City. And that's also actually what kind of brought me to Houston, that and my now wife. And so been happily married now for 6 months, which is really exciting. So been in Houston for about 3 years. And yeah, you're right. No home services whatsoever, right? But I knew, I think a lot of people, and this is kind of just the trend these days, it might be old hat at this point, but I think a lot of people get this idea that entrepreneurship has to be Silicon Valley, it has to be the new tech app, it has to be some new AI, chatbot situation. And they forget about what built America, really, which is hard services, hard products, steel,
right.
All these things that are, that we just take for granted, right? These buildings that we sit in, right? We take for granted and don't really think about all that goes into that stuff. And when you take a step back and you start looking at all that, and what kind of cemented home services for me was, I think it all kind of meshed together. I married into a family with my brother-in-law, who my now business partner, Holston, absolute superstar. We work super well together and wouldn't have done it without him, right? He's the other half of this situation. He's actually working on some insurance follow-ups that we're super backed up on right now. So he couldn't be here, but maybe the next one. He had been doing some roofing sales for another guy in Houston, and they were just killing it. I mean, like, the numbers they were putting up, I was just like, well, with my background and Holston's background and our focus on customer service and a franchise name behind us with the branding and the systems in place already, like think about what we can do together, combining all those forces. Because again, going back to home service, like these businesses, that the boring businesses, so-called, that Cody Sanchez talks about or whoever, they truly are cash flow engines, right? Yeah. There's not a whole lot of risk. I mean, you've de-risked a lot of things going into a business that's already an industry that's a little more mature,
right?
That's there already. And so I guess just a lot of those things combined led me to where we are.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Like I feel like now you're starting to see people more and more realize this about home services. I know for me, not so long ago either, only a few years ago, I was like, home services, like, I don't know. And then I read, have you read Millionaire Next Door?
Bits and pieces.
Yeah. It's like the most millionaires in America are from the trades. Like, you don't realize it. And you see more and more people getting into it. Like, yes, you can be an entrepreneur and build a business that actually cash flows in year 2 or 3 instead of, this idea of building businesses that don't make any money for 10 years, like a lot of tech companies.
Yeah. And venture capital, getting outside investors involved that are kind of vultures, really, at the end of the day, if you really dig into what they do and what they look for and how they're really just trying to get out at the next raise, right? Things like that. That just sounds like a mess. I didn't want any part of that.
Yeah. Okay. So you realize that Holston and you are going to partner up. You're going to do something together. He's got the home service. He's a top producer at that roofing company. I remember that.
Yeah.
You start looking at only home service brands, I guess, at that point?
Yeah. Well, in my entrepreneurial journey, when I was pretty disillusioned with the energy trading, situation, I was looking at a lot of different franchises, really. I always thought franchising was a really good way to step into entrepreneurship, for all the reasons you mentioned and all the reasons we'll probably get into a bit further. But I was first looking at food, acai bowls.
Yeah.
My brother built a pretty successful business out in Denver, Colorado with the Human Bean drive-through coffee.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother story. But there's, I don't know, 40 or 50 Human Beans around the Colorado area now. And so, the new owner is doing really, really well for himself, right? But then I felt like that realm of things was a little too popular. That's like what everybody wants to do. It seems a little, I don't know, easy, or not easy, but it's just a little too top of mind.
Yeah.
What I was kind of looking for is something that you don't really hear about on the day-to-day news, right? The stuff kind of behind the scenes. I always thought being somehow involved with real estate was really important because it's the only thing that's going to be here forever. It's inflation proof. It's the ultimate necessity in everybody's lives is real estate, right? It's just, you have to, that and food, obviously, but you have to have a place to live. You have to have a place to work, right? How do you keep those buildings up? And so it's just always very necessary. Just as the economy grows, that will be growing with it. And so, yeah, that's when we kind of narrowed down on home services. And I think the roofing side of it really influenced me to just kind of pull away from that and pull away from the other stuff I was looking at and focus in on home services.
Yeah.
So
you get into Voda, you go through training, you open the business. What was the moment where you, obviously had a moment where you decided, I want to be in restoration, I want to be in Voda, but what was the moment after you opened where it clicked? Like, yes, I made the right, this is my calling. This is what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, it's tough to say. I mean, I always believed there wasn't really ever a moment, and I still believe, right? I mean, we're not there yet, so I can't say I made it. But where it really started to click was our first couple big restoration jobs, which were about 4 or 5 months in. And that was a period of time when I still had a full-time job. I thought for my goals, I want to be very specific on this because it's a hot topic, right? Do I quit my job? Do I not? Do I hire the right people and maybe just do it on the side? I am in one camp. I have my own beliefs on it. It didn't really start to click until we landed those couple jobs, and I was working essentially 50 hours a week, not sleeping at all, and going to work like a zombie, trying to make this thing happen and make sure those jobs went well. And, you know, your first couple bigger restoration jobs, you don't really know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
You're just trying to figure it out. I mean, yeah, the systems are there, but you still have to live it, right? You still have to go do it. And it was when that happened, and I don't know, it was almost fortuitous. I hate to say it because restoration and several other industries, we are there to help, right? These are bad situations are where we come in and scoop them up off the ground and help them get back to pre-loss emission, right? So I say that because there was a derecho, a big tornado that came through Houston, and then there was Hurricane Beryl 2 months later, and jobs just started flooding in, right? Like, we didn't know how to handle it, right? It was a lot. It was, that's kind of where it just kicked us into gear.
Yeah.
It was starting to get there, and then I guess by the grace of God, or however you want to look at it, or the weather that came through, and we were just go.
Yeah. Was there any correlation between, so obviously those weather events kicked you into high gear, but was there any correlation between the day you, obviously it doesn't mean you leave your job and then sales just go up, but do you see a direct correlation between now that you're out there doing the mayor of the town business development?
Night and day. Night and day. There's not even a discussion about it in my mind.
Yeah.
There really isn't. There's so many, I think entrepreneurship, to really do it well, I'm not saying you can't build like a small cash flow machine, to just kind of pay the bills or pay a vacation budget for the year, build up after a couple of years. But if you really, like the big plans that we have, we want to get to some really high dollar figures, right? We want to be able to help the community. We want to on a massive scale, Houston and potentially other cities. But the only way you can do that is full-time.
Yeah.
Just the things you have to think about, the follow-ups, when you go home at night, your brain's, I know, I don't got to tell you this, your brain's just always running, right? And it always working and thinking about how to tinker with the SOP in this way. Is this going to make us a little better for the next couple jobs that come about? Just continuous improvement, right? And when you're spending 8 hours a day doing something for someone else, and not focused on it, and you're kind of just in this cognitive dissonance of, I got to do this job, I got to do these things, but man, this call's really critical right now. I got to answer this call. Like, especially in restoration, you got to be on it. Yeah. You got to be ready for that call. 2 a.m. Hey, your house is flooded? Be there in an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
what's fascinating to me about the going all in on the business? Like, people invest $500,000 into like a coffee shop, for example, right? You get into a home service business, whether it's a Voda or something else, for half that, or let's call it $300,000.
Yes,
and have these just as much upside, if not more, in home service as you do with a coffee shop, especially because coffee can only pull so many levers. You got to open more stores to be successful. And I always think to myself, like, if you're going to spend $500 on a coffee shop or $300 here, or use as a round number, and let's say your lifestyle is, it costs $10,000 a month to live. Mm-hmm. So take another $200. Let's say, assuming someone has the access to it, take the $500, put $300 into the business, for example. $200 you put in a bank account. And you're like, all right, I have $10,000 a month to live off of for the next 2 years. I have to make it work in 2 years. And it's like, it's the same thing, but people get so attached to, like, they'll invest the money in the coffee shop and the chairs and the desks and everything else, but they won't in their own, like, growing their business. And I've always been, again, I'm not saying everyone has access to, for example, $500,000, but usually if you can't turn a business to start making profit after 2 years, like, literally the IRS, like, if you think about it, if you claim losses on your tax returns for more than 2 years, they start to question it. Yeah. If losses year 3, year 4, it's one thing if you're scaling a huge company, but in a normal business, they're like, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. You should be able to, I gotta be careful. I can't make an earnings claim, but, like, you should be able to start to hit decent numbers 2 years in. Yes. But people try so hard to pull it out in year 1 or year 2. And we're not talking about 10 years, we're talking about 2 years. Yeah. I think you got to be, I do think there's times where people can have a job, but, like, it has to be a situation where you can mentally be focused on this business
Yes.
all day long.
Yes.
You're kind of just coasting in your other job kind of job.
Right. That job, you have to be somehow. I've heard of medical sales and other sales positions where if you've been there for a while, you can work like 10 hours a week from home.
Yeah.
And that's it. And you're still making good money. And like, yeah, that might be able to do it. But if you're in office, I don't see it.
Yeah. That one you hold on to because it's like that's great. But
yeah, going back to your point about the coffee shop situation, you're right. It's not even just 500, it's a million sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, that was my biggest. I was looking at the numbers, right? And I'm a numbers guy. It is what it is. And that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, so if I can net 80K, I'm looking at these FTDs and I'm like, if I net 80K, 100K, maybe, right? That's not even a guarantee on a pushing seven-figure investment. Yeah, you're right. I have to have 10 of these to make it worth my while.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to spend 5-6 years trying to build up that. I don't know. I didn't see it.
10 personal guarantees, 10 build outs, 10 different landlords. So you have to, at the end of the day, you kind of answer to the landlord when you're brick and mortar. They control your business.
And maybe you didn't put it in the right spot and that goes belly up.
And that's a bit of like just, I don't want to say luck, but that's a little bit of luck.
Yeah. And you're right. Exactly. Home services is high margin. It's a necessity.
Yeah.
It's not a want, right? It's a necessity and you can scale it, right? People don't know that, restoration is, and a lot of different home services. There are numbers. I've heard of restoration companies looking like software companies scaling to like 20, 30 million in 5-6 years, right?
Yeah.
Like, that must be insane. I don't know. Though that sounds ambitious and tough, but it's possible. Right?
It's why I talk to family offices all the time. They're like, oh, like call us if you have a franchisee, like at, numbers like that. And it's like, it happens in home services in general. You see roll-ups all the time.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears real quick. So you guys are killing it. You're following the playbooks. You're improving the playbooks. One of the things I love about you and Holston is you guys follow the system. I remember Holston probably called Dragon every day for the first year, like a lot, which is great. Yep. But then you also bring great feedback and help us improve the system. But day to day, what do you think really separates you guys in the marketplace from other restoration and cleaning companies that's allowing you to win these jobs and get more and more opportunities?
I don't know how else to put it besides just an obsession with the customer, right? It's just, if you're not there for them as people, not just a business, but as people, like there was a job we did in Hurricane Barrel where a 91-year-old lady didn't have any coverage on her home, right? Because it was a flood and the floods aren't covered by homeowner's insurance in Houston. And it's a mess, right? And FEMA has to come in. We lost money on that job. We lost a few $1,000s, but we did it for her. And she needed to get back to real. I mean, she is 91, right? She has asthma. She can't have mold in her home, right? And so we're building a business, but we're here to help the community. We really are. Getting people back on their feet. These are really stressful situations, especially fire situations, right? Their home is wrecked, right? And someone has to come in there and do that dirty work and get them back to normal, right? And we want to be those guys, right? It becomes your life in addition to just being a business. And so that obsession with the customer, making sure that you're there for them 24/7.
Yeah.
You're there for them. You can call me at 11 at night, right? I don't care, right? If you want to just chat, call, right? I don't care. Just stuff like that. That's what, has gotten us good reviews on Google, endless good reviews from our customers, and word of mouth. We're getting already a lot of word of mouth. We've had repeat customers on the restoration front. Well, we don't even really want repeat customers on restoration.
Right.
Because it means their house is just messed up, or I don't know, right? They're calling us, right? And they're calling us if they have a question on a leak or we're just getting calls back, right? And because they see that we truly do care, and so I think that's what separates us from a lot of them. I'm not saying that we're better than every single one. Like there's probably a couple others that care that much too, but really at the end of the day in home services, it's how much you care.
Yeah.
And everybody can be ISC or C-trade. That's not going to be your differentiator. Everybody can be, we got this cool new truck mount, Yeah. Yes, that's all a value add for sure. Separates you from X amount of contractors every step of the way you do it. But really, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is, what's your motivation? What are you here for? Why are you doing this? And how much do you really want to make them? How much do you believe in the mission of what you're doing?
Yeah.
So I think that's what's been huge for us. And so you ask me or Holston, like it's 24/7. It's, it can be exhausting at times, but it's more rewarding than anything.
I think it's great too that you guys truly are a family business, right? Your family, brother-in-law, and
exactly.
It's interesting. This conference, only kicked off last night, the early kind of start of it. But I've always said that business isn't a family; it's a high-performing sports team.
Yep.
And I've actually, I'm starting to shift that mindset. For me, I think Voda is a family, and it's interesting. I'm thinking about our next conference, and one of the things I think so cool about this conference is there's a fair amount of spouses coming to the conference, and I was thinking about next year, like I want to make it where it's like a no-brainer to bring your spouse. Like I know obviously sometimes, obviously kids and things, and I don't know if we need a daycare or something, but like, how do we make it where like maybe there's spouse day and it's like, husbands and wives, whoever the spouse is, that's not the main business. Like, let's give them resources, like how to be the spouse of a business owner, or like how to deal with it, or like, fun things. Like, I just want to get more community in here because I think the more you lean into your people, and they know you truly care.
Yeah.
That's how great teams are built.
Exactly. Yeah. And, I guess that is a good segue into franchising, right? In some ways, if we want to go there. I don't know if we want to go there now, but, I'm friends with a lot of these other franchise owners, right? Trevor Ferguson, West Austin, awesome operation, right? We're friends.
Yeah.
We just chat shop, right? What are you doing in this very specific situation that that we feel uncomfortable, with right now? Like, we don't feel like we have the right process in place. What are you doing, right? It's continuous improvement with other people. Yeah. And there's chats all throughout the day on it. Everybody's just improving together, daily. 1% a day, right, is I think the saying. And so, entirely, for the entire system to go do that and bring everybody, it only builds a better team.
Well, it's interesting too. Like success leaves clues, and like you're saying like you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with, whether it's money, morals, health. Like whoever you hang out with, there's 5 people making money, and you're the 4 people make great money, and you're the 5th. Like you'll probably make money too because you'll pick up their habits. Yeah. But you and Trevor talk all the time. Also a top producer. Both now on the FAC. For those that listen, FAC means Franchise Advisory Council. We just formed it recently. Let me touch on that for a second. Obviously we just had our first call. We're kicking that off. Where do you envision that community going? The FAC, working hand in hand, franchise partners, franchisor together. Where do you see that heading?
Well, I think there's only benefit that's going to come from it, and it's because you are a franchisor. You're not in the data. You're not in the field with these customers, right? Yeah. Your primary client is us.
Yeah.
Right? How do we serve you better? How do we add value to your business? Which in turn adds value to your business, right? So we're your eyes, on exactly what's happening in the field. And, I thought that random survey was pretty cool. Just going out there, just litmus tests of what is happening with different franchisees. Oh, well, even if it's just a random off one, like what could we have done better? Like, just, again, continuous improvement. And the systems, I don't care who you are. If you're not learning every day, you're not growing. You're not going to get better.
Yeah.
And in turn, your revenue is not going to increase. Right. So, this is a very deep web of an industry, right? There's so many layers to it.
Yeah.
Right? There's residential, there's commercial. And once you start getting the commercial game, that is a whole different beast, right? And we're touching on it. We're trying to get an emergency response plan in place, kind of a draft one to start. We just got a couple leads downtown Houston, 52-story skyscrapers, right? Like, got a random call out of the blue from a guy who's just looking for, he was like, well, storm season's coming up. We got to prepare for that. So I called him. I went and went to go meet him. And, he's the facility engineer, head of property at this giant skyscraper, right? So something happens on that. That's a Herculean effort, right? That's probably where we'd have to bring other franchisees in.
Right.
And so I say all this just to kind of give some insight into what it is with boots on the ground, and how we can relay a lot of that info to you, help you build better systems to serve other franchisees who, maybe need a little more improvement, a little more tweak. Because sometimes it's just a slight little tweak,
right,
can turn you from a, just chugging along a break even maybe to a thriving business.
Yes, that's right. It's just one little change. It's interesting. Like, I love what we're doing with the FAC in the winter. I was going through a little bit of a tough time. I felt like we were stuck a little bit in the winter. And one, I've learned that no matter what, that January Q1 is in home services in general, restoration cleaning, it's a little bit lower. So now scale that times all of our owners. I'm like, what's going on? Like, we're kind of stuck as a system.
Yeah.
And I had like a kind of a epiphany moment, or God speaking to me, which was I heard this, like, I don't want to say I heard a voice, but like I had this thought, which was work on you and I'll take care of the rest, which meant, like, if you know me, I read voraciously and I listen to a tremendous amount of home service podcasts, business podcasts. I fly to conferences. And I realized, like, my job is to take that 2-day event that kind of sucks to go to. You got to go, you got to sit there, you got to listen. And maybe after that event, there's 3 huge takeaways.
Yeah.
But I can do that while you guys are doing what you do.
Yeah.
And then I can bring that back and basically improve myself to then improve my leaders, and then it trickles down the company.
Yeah.
But one of the realizations I had was, like, I thought we were doing a good job listening, but the FAC, it's clear to me how that is just like the ultimate way to work together hand in hand and listen, and the surveys and things like that. But I'm super excited. It's funny, like, I think that's something we've changed over the past 6 months to a year. It's like, we really mean it. Like, we want the feedback. I told my team, like, the 2 questions you should ask, and this works in your business too, is, what's something in the company we're doing that's brilliant that we should never stop doing?
Yeah.
And then what's something like that's just so silly that we can easily change?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I use this example. We have some teammates here in Madison that come to the office, right? Let's say I say to a teammate, hey, I need you to be here every morning at 8, right? I work here for 3 months, and I ask, what's something in the company that's kind of silly that we could change? Well, to get here at 8, I live 20 minutes away, but rush hour to get here at 8 is so crazy I have to leave my house at 7. So it's an hour.
Yeah.
And if I left my house at 8, the rush hour, I'm using another example, right? Rush hour is dead and I could be here at 8:20.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, like, start at 8:30. And how about, instead of leaving your house at 7, could you work from home from 7:30 to 8:20, catch up on email, do all that stuff, and then you'll be here in 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Their job's easier. They're more productive. What were they doing from 8 to 8:30 that was so important?
Yeah.
But it was just a silly thing that, like, if you didn't ask, they probably wouldn't have said it to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just going to go to the job and travel an hour, or maybe it's an hour back. Maybe they had to leave at 5, and it's like, if I left at 4:30, I would beat the truck. Like, It's these silly little things, and you do that hundreds, if not thousands of times throughout the organization.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you've got a great business.
Yeah.
Same with your customers.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
How's your leadership style changed as the company has grown and gone through more experiences?
Well, so I was a manager of my team on energy trading. It was a company called ACT Commodities in New York City. Well, they were headquartered in Amsterdam, all around the world, a niche space of environmental commodities. I was a manager of the U.S. team covering utility companies. And so I had leadership experience before this. And so I don't think it's changed a whole lot from that. I mean, that was a pretty pivotal experience for me in my career. That job at ACT, still love the guys, still in touch with them. Actually, I'm here now, and there's a couple visiting Houston, which sucks. Just behind them.
Yep.
But Sometimes it just works out like that. But anyway, I don't think it's changed a whole lot, really. It's good to have management experience before going into a business, right? It's good to have that kind of, you're going to deal with random stuff that you probably don't want to deal with a whole lot, right? But that's just part of personnel management. And especially that's a services business, that energy trading, it's a financial services business. This is it's still a services business, right?
Yeah.
And so you're dealing with people on a day-to-day basis, right? This will never be automated away. Our industry will never. Home building, at least not in my lifetime. I don't know. Every house is too different.
Yeah. So
if you're not a people person and you don't have, compassion, this is hard work, right?
Yeah.
And have an ability to, but at the same time, it's a healthy balance of, well, you've been working a lot, but also, we can't have slackers, right? Like we're building something big, right? You have to communicate the vision up front.
Yeah.
And if they're not a part of that, you got to fire fast.
Yeah.
Right. And if they're not buying into that, there's indications early on that you will find pretty much off the bat. And, and so we've had to go through a few people like that, but we've found an awesome team so far. So it's really just paying really close attention to what they say, to what they do, their excitement, their goals, and just be a human being, be there for them. Be like Holston, he went and like early on, Logan, who's our, superstar crew chief, Logan, I just remember Holston early on, like goes to his home or to his house on a Sunday because Logan's car was broken down, and Holston knows cars inside now. He used to build race engines. He goes to his home on a Sunday, spends 5 hours with his, wife and with Holston's wife and family, and they're all hanging out and having fun, and he fixes the car, right? Like, you have to care about your employees just as much as your clients.
Yeah.
Right. And so we just had an awesome dinner at a steakhouse, just a employee appreciation type thing where we all had a little too much to drink and had some fun. And, it was the last Thursday, and I was recovering from that for a couple of days, but
gets slower, huh? As you get older,
it's not the same. But yeah, so things like that, bonuses here and there, and Dragon has an awesome bonus system that we're trying to emulate a bit, so that everybody shares in the action, right?
Yeah.
You want everybody bought in. Again, this is a service business. And so if everybody's bought in and everybody understands the mission and the goals together, there's really no limits to what you can accomplish. And that sounds cheesy, but it's true. It's true. It's, you're incentivizing people appropriately and treating them well, and they will treat you even better back, right? So it's just being a good human being.
Yeah.
And so I don't think my leadership style has changed much, but I think hopefully that's some insight into how we look at it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining this podcast. This was great. If you're listening and you've enjoyed this podcast or others, please do leave a 5-star review or some type of review. Share it with other home service business owners or potential business owners. And Thomas, thanks again.
Thank you.
You're f***ing fired. If you want to say those words to your boss, make sure you head on over to ifiredmybosspodcast.com and fill out the form to schedule a no-cost consultation. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend who might also want to fire their boss.